One, two, three, record. Hi, I'm Afkar Milano. And without talking any longer, I just want to talk about modal verbs in English grammar. So the first thing that we need to know is what is the modal verbs itself? So here's the answer. A modal is a type of auxiliary or helping verb that's used to express ability, possibility, permission, or obligation. That is modal. Then before we go any further, I just want to tell you 10 there are 10 modals auxiliaries. So can, may, must, will, should, could, might, ought to, shall, and would. Of course, each one of these helping verb has a different function. So let's go. So next, based on the book, uh, there are some basic of modals. So the first one is modals can be for verb and without to. That is something that you need to know and remember. For example, then we can say, I may meet her tomorrow. Do not ever add word to after helping verb, except ought to, because that is one word. Modals never change forms. That means they don't have, like ending of verb like s, ing, or ad in the end. Three, modals never use do when forming question or negatives. They use not after the modals and before verb. Remember that. Example, in negative, you can say mustn't, must not. Let's go to the next basic. Modals can be used in short answer and question text. Example, in sentence, you will apply for the job, won't you? I might. That is two function of modals. In word, won't you and I might. Next, modal in present or future. Example, in this sentence, I can come immediately if you want. That is present because immediately. The next example is I may call you tomorrow, future, because not happen now, but tomorrow. That is future. And now we know the basic of modals. Now let's talk about main uses of modals. That is an important point too. One is predicting, then true, untrue, or possible, deduction, necessity, duty, and advice. Let's talk about predicting first. So predicting is basically the use of models to predict something that will happen in the future. In grammar, we use shall and will to predict what will happen. So the example is, I should win the next game easily. That is predicting. The use of models for predict something. The next example is, we shall be staying at home for the next 2 weeks because Corona, COVID-19. Next, difference between shall and will. So shall can be used with I and we, or shall commonly used to make polite offers. Example, shall I turn the video off? Shall we wear the mask? Okay, next. True, untrue. So in this point, true and untrue section, there are two part. The first one, let's talk about present first. In addition to predicting, we can use may, might, could, and will to say we think something is true or like. Example, you might be right. So this is like, it's likely now. Next, surely he won't be there already. So it's like, I don't believe he is. The past. We can use could, have, will. Next, necessity. We can use must and mustn't to decide what is necessary for ourselves. Example, I really must be going. It's getting cold. So it's like, I think I must. I must do it. Or another example, you mustn't keep asking me for the answer. You mustn't asking me for the answer. And we can also use have to this case, but have is not a modal verb. because it has ending like ing, ad. So we can use it more situation than must. Like we can say have to, having to, and had to. So have to is usually suggest someone else to decide what necessary. Example, the notice says we have to report our assignment to the lecturer. So next, duty and advice. We can use should and ought to express our opinion about what is right and wrong. I like this one. Example of duty. You should take this responsibility very seriously because it's your duty. Then here's the example of advice. You really shouldn't have done that. It's like strong advice we can know from this sentence. And then we can also use shall to ask for advice. Example, what shall I do? Or do you think I should tell her that I love her? Okay, let's talk about obligation. So basically, there are three obligations. The first one is legal obligation. Second one is moral obligation, and then the last personal obligation. Let's talk about legal now. We can use verb and adjective to express legal obligation, like in public. Example, you are breaking the law. Joining the union is not obligatory. They are above the law. That is example of legal obligation in public, in country. Next, moral obligation. So it's same like legal obligation, but we can also use nouns in this case. Example, it's your duty to help them. Another example is you are supposed to smile to your girlfriend. Then the last one is personal or freedom obligation. So in this obligation, we can use many phrases like example, it's up to you, it's your turn. So something like that. So this is freedom obligation. So we can use so many phrases in this obligation. So that is modal verb. And I hope you can understand what I'm trying to explain. And thank you. Bye.